Every time we change our thought patterns, we create those new neural pathways. And the more you do that, those old ones begin to die away. And all of a sudden, you're living in that new paradigm, that new way of life.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hello and welcome to the My Future Business Show. My name is Rick Nuske. I'm your host. I have somebody very special on the line today. I'm with the wonderful Sharon Valenti. How are you, Sharon?
I'm exceedingly well, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well. Like I said earlier, I've got 2 feet and a heartbeat. I'm not going to complain. Now, just for context, Sharon, I'm going to share with the audience that you are the founder of Blueprint for Stress Relief. You're a serial entrepreneur, coach and teacher, and you and I are going to be talking about the 3 kinds of business which are not necessarily what you think they are, and how to find your underlying beliefs and question the truth about them. But before we get into that part of the call, I'd love to spend a little bit of time, as is customary, learning a little bit more about you. And I think a good place to do that is to find out where you grew up. Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in England and Germany. My father was an American in the Air Force, and my mother was British. So sort of one of those love stories.
Yes, wonderful.
And I was born in England, and we traveled around quite a bit, as you can imagine. But my father always tried to get stationed in either England or, in this case, Germany for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we did a brief stint in California. So that's where I'm originated from. I live actually in Georgia now in the United States. And what sort of got me into the type of coaching that I do right now is, unfortunately, both of my parents like to drink, and they like to drink rather a lot.
Right.
So my mother was one of those very violent alcoholics, and not much of a support from her, but it taught me to be a great people pleaser and a great manipulator, trying to keep the peace. And I took on a lot of underlying beliefs as a child unwittingly. I mean, we just do.
Mm-hmm.
How we know to have that vocabulary, I don't know. But mother says, I'm going to spank you. And the 3 and 4-year-old you hears, I'm a bad girl. I'm not lovable.
Mm.
Somehow that sticks, and it gets reinforced once you get into elementary school and junior high and high school, and you might not get the best grades, or you might get in trouble for talking, or you might not be part of the cool crowd. It just feeds those underlying beliefs, and it just begins to create this pattern in your life.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately, when I was around 8 years old, my father molested me. So that created a whole nother set of beliefs in me. And I didn't even remember that incident. And I shut it down so much that I didn't remember it until I was in my 30s. And I guess it was just time for it to come to the surface. And I observed, when I really sat still and explored it, that I had taken on the blame for that incident. That I as a kid, said, it was my fault. If I hadn't been born, it would have never happened. And again, you're dealing with a child's mind. You know, I have a mother who's a severe violent alcoholic that I could not go to and tell what had happened. And here's the other person that I'm supposed to trust and admire and adore, who's also betrayed me in a different way. And I had nobody that I could go and tell this to, or at least I didn't realize that I had somebody I could go and tell that to.
Yeah.
So I shoved down all those beliefs inside of me as well. So they showed up in a different way throughout my life. So fast forward through domineering friendships and certainly abusive and domineering intimate relationships.
Mm-hmm.
It just got to the point one day I said, I can't take this anymore. Something has to change or I'm going to die.
Enough is enough.
Yeah, really, enough is enough. So I started, first of all, I made plans to leave my then husband with my two children and I, remove us out of that. And that was a very dangerous and tricky situation, and I managed it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started just anything that crossed my path that was sort of a self-help type of course or book or people to talk to or YouTube things to listen to, podcasts. And I fed myself with that stuff. And the more you listen to that positive kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
the more your thoughts begin to shift. And this is what happened. And then I learned how to bring those underlying beliefs to the surface and how to question whether they're true or not. And they weren't. They never are. In fact, it's just, like I said, as a kid, we take them on. I found I am lovable. I am likable. I am a great person, blah, blah, blah. But that pattern, unfortunately, takes hold in a lot of people who've grown up, specifically my generation, and some of the things that we heard are generational as well. I call them the one-liners.
Mm-hmm.
Like I heard frequently, children should be seen and not heard. Did you ever hear that growing up?
Yes, I did.
And you're across the pond from me, right?
Yeah.
So it was a generational. Children should be seen and not heard. Speak only when spoken to. Money doesn't grow on trees. Boys shouldn't cry. Suck it up, man it up, etc. And if you stop and get still, and even writing this out sometimes helps, find out what beliefs you took on about yourself as a result of repeatedly hearing those one-liners. For me, hearing children should be seen and not heard all the time, when I sat with that, I realized I adopted the beliefs that I was unimportant, or children are unimportant, and that I should remain invisible. And that's pretty much how I showed up right through my teen years into early adulthood. Again, unconsciously.
Oh, yeah.
These are, they just take hold of us. Now we
Yep.
have a generation of men that are afraid to show their emotions, and their wives are screaming, oh, he doesn't love me, he never shows this emotion, and it's not the guy's fault. It's a learned behavior. And money does grow on the trees, by the way. Paper's made from wood, right? And money's made from the
Yep.
paper. So folks, we have money trees everywhere. Don't believe that shortage consciousness kind of thing. But in all seriousness, it does a lot of damage.
Of course.
And we see that predominantly in young teens today. And that's because of my own childhood and teen years were so brutal. And I remember just feeling so empty and so alone and so misunderstood and invisible and just suicidal at times. So I can really relate to these young people. And now, of course, social media it fans the flames a little bit. However, I think what happens with social media and the likes that people are checking is the misunderstanding that the likes that we look for are not about us. They're about what we posted. And unfortunately, they're getting misinterpreted. Oh, I didn't get many likes. They don't like me. Oh, look at all the likes I got. They like me. When you have nothing to do with it. It's your post that's being liked or not liked. And of course, when someone makes unkind comments, that's merely a reflection of what's going on inside of them, has nothing to do with me unless it triggers one of those underlying beliefs. So it's really a matter of slowing down, number one. And when we get triggered, get into the practice of seeing if you can find out what you were just believing about yourself that caused you to be so upset. I'm going to talk about those three businesses. So there's your business, and there's the divine's business, and there's my business. And the only time we can ever get in trouble is when we're in somebody else's business. And that's whether it's in our mind or an out loud kind of conversation. I'm sure we've all been out shopping or in a restaurant and you look at someone and you think, what were they thinking when they put that outfit on today? Right? Have you ever
Yep.
done that? Right. Whose business is it what they wear, right?
Yep.
Or your partner is, it could be business partner, anybody. Your partner, you say something to them and they give sort of a casual answer back. And we get all bent out of shape about it. And because we're thinking they should have responded differently. But whose business is it what they say or how they eat or what they wear or what they think? Just as much as whose business is it what I do or what you do or what anybody does. So when you're there and you're just minding your own business, let's say you're scanning the internet or reading a book or something, you're fine. The minute you start thinking about somebody else or what they should or shouldn't be doing or should or shouldn't be saying, then your blood pressure starts to go up because you're trying to run someone else's life and you're totally in
Yeah.
business. And if there's a tsunami or an earthquake or the forest fires, very, very sad that these things happen, or maybe it's not. But that's the divine's business. I cannot do anything about what has happened. It happened already. And for me to get on my high horse with a cause all of a sudden and get myself all worked up about it is ridiculous. One of my favorite, I can't think of the right word here, but one of the things that I say the most
Mm-hmm.
that keeps me calm all the time is, how do I know it should have happened? Because it did. And the minute I will start to argue, oh, it shouldn't have happened, oh, shouldn't have done that, da, da. Now I am causing my suffering, nobody outside of me,
What do they
right?
say? You're shooting all over yourself.
Exactly. But people don't stop and think about, it's already happened. How do we know it should have? Because it did. So stop arguing with it. That was the saving grace for me the day I got the news that my son had died, is obviously as a mother, it was not the news I was ever wanting to hear.
No.
But I remember just repeating it over and over. How do I know he should be dead? Because he is. And that's not a brutal statement. It kept me sane in that moment. Otherwise, I would have been like maybe other parents saying, oh my God, he shouldn't be dead. And
Mm.
I should have gone before him. And that's, I will just keep myself insane in that
Yes,
moment if I
absolutely.
play that game. And that's with anything, oh, it shouldn't have rained on the bride's wedding day. Well, it did. So find a nice indoor spot and keep moving forward. Don't keep putting yourself backwards. And we play this game all day long. They say that we create our reality. And sometimes I think people might have, um, they don't totally understand that. But if we reflect on that, all day long, we create the stories in our mind and they feel very, very real. Well, they are real in our mind
Mm.
and they're not true though. They are not true. It's just a story that we're writing over and over. We get up, we're so influenced again by our childhood. We are taught to put ourselves on the back burner, to let others go first, let the companies get served first, let them get seated first, open the door and let that lady or gentleman go before you.
Mm.
So we grow up and we feel guilty if we do something nice for ourselves. You give the shirt off your back for your kids or anybody else, but you feel uncomfortable to do something good for yourself because we've been taught never to put ourselves first. That's selfish and self-centered. Well, we do need to be self-centered because if we're not, nobody else is going to center on us. We have to take care of ourselves. And for a lot of people, when they hear you need to learn to love yourself, that's all good and well, but nobody tells you exactly how to do that. It's okay to say it, just how do we do it?
How do you do it?
Are you familiar with Louise Hay?
I've heard the name.
Okay, she's since passed away, but she has Hay House Publishing
Yes.
Company, and she wrote a book, You Can Heal Your Life. And one of the stories in there was a turning point for me in my mind. She talks about if we were to go in the kitchen and we're going to make ourselves a salad, and you pull the lettuce out. It's a little bit turning, brown. So you pick off those pieces and you take what's good bits and you put them on the plate.
Mm-hmm.
And the little cherry tomatoes, they're a little bit crinkled. It's okay. I'll put those on my plate. And the cucumber's a bit soggy, but you cut off the worst part and put the rest on your plate.
Mm-hmm.
Would you serve me that same salad?
Probably not.
No, you go and buy all new produce. I'm your guest, right? You want to put on a
Best of
good
the
show
best. Yep.
for me, right? Why would we do more for somebody else than we would do for ourselves? That self-love, I know we program, oh, don't waste, don't waste, don't waste. There's some animal out there that will eat that produce
I
that
love
we
it.
toss in the bin. There is. Self-love and loving self starts with doing those things that you would jump to do for somebody else first. Start doing it for yourself. Set the table nicely. Pretend you've got company coming. Make it lovely for yourself and train yourself to enjoy it and be okay with it. If you're hungry, serve yourself before everybody else. Nobody's going to criticize you for it. Only you in your mind is going to hear that ticker tape that is actually somebody else's voice. It's not even your own, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
mom and dad telling you, don't be greedy, don't be this, don't be that. And it's programmed into us. If we could get rid of that, we wouldn't be even thinking any of that. We'd make a nice salad. We'd serve ourselves first. We'd go through the door first, maybe, or just out of
Maybe not.
politeness.
Yep.
Exactly. But it's being aware of whose beliefs are we still carrying, and what beliefs did we create ourselves about ourselves, and then finding out, are they true? So you could take, so let's say the situation is, my mother said, I'm going to spank you when I finished when I finish washing up, I'm going to spank you.
Mm.
My mind hears, I'm a bad girl, I'm unlovable. So sticking with that incident, I could say, I'm so upset with my mother because she made me feel unlovable. Well, then I'd have to look at that and say, is that 100% true that she made me feel unlovable? And the truth is, no. I'm the one that made me feel unlovable. I'm the one that told myself I was a bad girl and mommy doesn't love me. And all my mother said was, I'm going to spank you. But that sticks. That sticks with me. And then if I take that a little bit farther,
Yeah.
I could say, well, I could turn that around to, she didn't make me feel, which I just did. And I made her feel that way. Well, how could that be true? Well, in my mind, I called her all sorts of things. Even as a child, my mommy's a bad mommy and da 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 da.
Yeah.
And we do it to us. It's just showing us what we do to ourselves over and over and over. And it's a ridiculous cycle that we get ourselves into unconsciously, but it cripples a lot of people's lives as a result. This is how anxiety comes into play. We create scenarios about the future, and we're so trained to see the bad side of everything that we immediately envision a bad outcome. And I look at it like this: when the holidays are coming around, for those that celebrate Christmas and birthdays or any holiday, there's a bit of an excitement there. Oh, I wonder what presents I'm going to get. Oh, I wonder if they're going to get me a cake for my birthday. There's some excitement there, right? Well, why can't we imagine the future like that? Be curious about it instead of fearful about, this, and I'm being pretty basic here. Oh, my marriage ended. It's not the end of the world. Oh, I wonder what the universe is going to bring me next. What wonderful person is going to come into my life. I am not being cavalier with anybody's life by any
No.
means. I'm just showing sometimes what we do to ourselves. I heard someone talking one time about a relationship that they were in that looked like it was coming to an end. And the woman said, yeah, he's been so mean to me, and on occasion he's hit me, and I know he's sorry every time, and I love him, and yeah, he's cheated on me a couple times, but he doesn't mean it. They don't mean anything to him. You say to this woman, okay, I just want to get clear on this. This is the person you want to spend the rest of your life with? And when you question it like that, it's a bit of a shock because you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, did I hear what I just said? And it's that fear of the unknown. But if they could separate themselves and not, if they really love this person, then surely they would want that person to go and be with whom they want to be with and be happy. But we tend to turn it back to ourselves and, oh, poor me. And we keep ourselves in this victim mentality unconsciously.
Mm.
But we could just as easily say, okay, right, bye, pack your bags, I'll
See you
help you with
later.
that. And oh, universe, I had just opened the door for something tremendous to come into my life. But we seldom do that until we have retrained our thoughts to think differently, to see things differently.
Mm.
Every time we change our thought patterns completely away, we create those new neural pathways. And the more you do that, those old ones begin to die away. And all of a sudden, you're living in that new paradigm, that new way of life. And just like everything else, it takes constant practice, mindfulness. When people say be present, that's another one of those things. Be present, but nobody
Mm.
really tells you how to be
How to
present,
do it.
right?
Mm.
So I have found um, I'm a right-handed person. And if I go for a week brushing my teeth with my left hand instead, you can be sure I'm very mindful, or I'm going to have that toothpaste all over my face, because you're not used to using the other hand. Or if you put your slacks on in the morning and you always put your right leg on first and you go to put your left leg first instead, you really have to pay attention to what you
Yeah.
do. It's not natural for you. We dress mindlessly. We do so much without thinking because we conditioned our mind to behave that way, and the body automatically follows it. So it is very, very possible, very doable to retrain ourselves into exactly the kind of life we would like ourselves to have by questioning what we're believing, by finding out what those underlying beliefs we have about ourselves. And the quickest way to do that is anytime you get triggered. If we have an argument with somebody, or somebody has an argument, tries to have an argument with us, starts an argument, they could come up and say, Sharon, you are the most rotten person I've ever met. And in the past, I would have definitely reacted to that. And these days, I can get still and I can find inside of me moments when I've been the most rotten person ever. And I'll say, thank you for pointing that out. I can find that. And then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, how must I be showing up for someone to even be able to perceive me that way?
Yeah.
And it's a nice wake up call, actually. We have no control over how someone perceives us any more than they have control over how we perceive them. You could do the greatest Cirque du Soleil act in the world, and one person could think you're a nutcase and the other person think you're genius, right?
Yep.
We have no control over that. Yet we've been, again, trained as children to care more about what others think of us than what we think of ourselves. Thus began the pattern of us looking for approval, like, love, everything outside of ourselves. And we put this tremendous burden on other people to do for us what they can't do,
They can't
because
do.
we're the only one that knows what it's like to support, to have support, to support myself. I know exactly what that's like. If I say, Rick, I expect you to, you're not supporting me, damn it, da, 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how could you have a clue what that would look like for me? Or if my husband, you're not loving me like I want to be loved. Well, of course I am, because he doesn't know what that takes. It's my job to love me, like me, support me, take care of me. And if my husband adds those to the mix, that's like icing on the cake for me. But
Absolutely.
it's still up to me to teach myself to be self-reliant. That way, I'm never disappointed. When we have an expectation, we are literally setting ourselves up to be disappointed for the simple reason they're my expectations, they're your expectations, and we can never fully live up to another person's expectations the way they want us to.
Can I just jump in there? Because I hear you say that, and I have this saying that those who never expect anything are never disappointed. And that's something that you have just validated for me. This is your conversation, and the things that you have revealed are probably getting a lot of people who are listening to this call today thinking about their own lives, because you touched a few points on my own. For example, you'll never be good enough was one that I always heard. Now, when we talk about the at-risk youth that you work with, they are very vulnerable. They are at that, I guess, almost that permeable stage, that stage at which they could still be turned around. I don't like the word trained, but maybe retrained to cognitively see themselves differently. How is it that you connect with people like this that need you? And what is the process that you take them through? What sort of a journey is this?
So I actually do it through a course, and on occasion I offer a package of one-on-one coaching session, but I find
Mm-hmm.
the course to be adequate. In the very first lesson, they are instructed to write a letter to the person that hurt them the most.
Yeah.
And there's a format to it. And in the second paragraph, they're using just one word words, and
Mm-hmm.
they're describing how they felt at the time. So it could be battered, insulted, worthless, blah, blah, blah. So what's coming up there are all the underlying beliefs that they're carrying around. And then the rest of the lessons have a series of different questions in each lesson that you would take a specific situation. So I gave the example about my mother um, saying she's going to spank me, and I took it as I'm unlovable. And then I questioned that. Can I really know she thinks I'm unlovable? And it's a clear no for me in that situation. But then there's other questions that I apply to it. And ultimately, I see that it was me doing it to me. And I
Mm.
see it's not true that I'm unlovable. And so it's never about, um, what it is about is finding the truth. It's not about making you feel better or anything. It's just uncovering the truth. And so if you've got a deep ingrained belief, I also heard I would never amount to anything. Now that I did. And how that showed up is I spent at least half of my life trying to prove my mother right. I would do so much
Ah,
self-sabotaging behavior,
yep.
unconsciously trying to prove her right. Now, other people might go the opposite direction, become workaholics, super successful, blah, 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 and they're exhausted trying to prove them wrong.
And
You know,
unfulfilled, nevertheless.
right, right, exactly. So in uncovering these underlying beliefs and taking them to task, and when you see that they've never been true, there's this internal shift that takes place. And the more you do this over and over and over and over and over,
Mm.
exploring every underlying belief, and sometimes you may have already uncovered, oh, I am lovable, but something else will trigger me in a different way, and I can take it back and see, oh, it's still related to that, I'm not lovable, but I already know that I am.
Yeah.
So I relax about that again. It's not to say you might not get triggered from time to time. The more you practice uncovering and you get to the truth over and over again, there's this great change that takes place in you. And I always say, would you prefer $1 billion or peaceful thoughts? Yeah, it's a bit tempting, right? But
Mm.
peaceful thoughts wins every time, because when you've got peaceful thoughts, you're not worried about money. You literally are not worried about anything anymore, because you understand. I also, part of the course is, let's say I am unlovable. Okay,
Mm.
I'm unlovable. What's the worst thing that could happen if you are unlovable? Well, nobody would want to be around me. And then what? Well, I'd wander through life all alone. And then what? Well, I feel sad and empty. And then what? Well, then I just have me. Well, the worst thing I hear is you believing your thoughts. That's all it is.
That's all
None
it
of it's
is.
real. But that's how you can peel away when you're feeling afraid or anxious about something. If you do that, and then what, and then what, and then what against the thought you're thinking, nobody will want to be around me. And then what, whatever it is. And you just do all the and then what's until there's nothing left. If it comes down to, then I'll just be by myself. Well, that's the only person I ever have anyhow is myself.
You know what I hear? The truth will reveal itself. That's what I'm taking away from
Yeah.
that. That's
Yes.
incredibly powerful. Sharon, if you had a book, can I add, I would be reading it. Are you going to become an author? Do you have a book? What's happening there?
No, and it's funny. I have like a mindset about that too. I hear, oh, you must write a book. You must write a book. And then from the authors, I hear, oh, you don't make very much money off of a book.
It's not about that, I don't think. I think it's about how you help.
Get the message across. Well, being a guest on a podcast like yours, you have a large audience who can hear this. Just even planting a seed that maybe somebody's heard one word, like, or the three businesses, or something that's food for thought. That creates just a little bit of a shift in there. And of course, they can visit our site, Blueprint for Stress Release, and the course is available there. And I'm getting ready to roll out 8 principles to revolutionize your inner beliefs. The course is for anyone.
Right.
It's the same principle, but my focus, and you alluded to it earlier, I feel if I can reach these young people now and offer them this way that they'll have for the rest of their life, if they choose to keep practicing it, to tackle these underlying beliefs now so that as they get into adulthood, they'll have a peaceful life going forward. They'll attract people into their lives that will be good for the relationship instead of making
Toxic.
them feel worse.
Yeah.
Right. We do attract and we give off an energy. And, if you have that awful belief about yourself, the bully, he always knows which kid to pick on. And the bully's got underlying beliefs about themselves. They're just misdirecting it. So is the alcoholic, the sex addict, the food addict. They're
Everyone.
looking for relief in all the wrong places. And if they could simply go through a program like this, and it's so simple and it's self-paced, you take your time, and I've created a Facebook page where
Yep.
we'll meet once a week, and it'll be live, and they can bring their questions. I can facilitate and show and speak and really engage there and help people who
You really
participate in
need it.
calls. So that's where I feel I'm
Yeah,
unique in
wow.
the world.
What a firecracker of a story is the best way I can explain it. I mean, describe it. It's such a power-packed session that we've just had. And if you don't mind, Sharon, I would love if you would please to share that website URL again so I can make sure everybody knows about it.
Certainly. The easier one is isittrue.com.
Right.
And you can follow us on Facebook under Is It True and Blueprint for Stress Release, and on Instagram under Is It True.
Fantastic. Well, look, everybody was on the call today. I'm pretty sure that if you're in a vulnerable position, you're wondering about your own beliefs, and you're looking for that North Star. I believe that Sharon is that North Star that you need to reach out to. If you provide some time for her to help you, she will certainly do so. And for everybody's on the call today, you will find the links back to Sharon and her wonderful work at the website that she's just mentioned. And with that all being said, Sharon, thank you so very much for spending some time with me on the My Future Business show today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure indeed.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.